Hello everyone, my name is Arun. Welcome to my channel. In this video, I like to say a few words about this ransomware called as Wannacry Ransomware, which is actually running throughout the internet and it's infecting many PCs throughout the world. Okay, to start with, I just want to open up this Wikipedia article. This ransomware is actually developed from the software called as Eternal Blue. Stylist with this name. This is actually an exploit or a program that was actually developed, that was believed to be developed by the National Security Agency of United States of America. Okay, so what this software does, Eternal Blue does, is that when it's launched, it can go and attack a particular computer and lock it up, and if possible, it can retrieve all the data from that computer or lock the computer up until or unless unless other user complies to certain kind of demands. That is the power of this operating software. Okay, so that's why it's called as an exploit, because it is capable of entering into another computer through internet by using some kind of vulnerability present in an operating system, especially Windows operating system. Okay, and it's able to extract data or even encrypt or decrypt data. So what happened is that this software got released on the internet, or should I say leaked in the internet by some hacker group, by a hacker group called the Shadow Brokers on 14th April. And so what happened is that this software was actually used by a few hackers throughout the world, and they added little more features to it, and then they made this Wannacry ransomware. So they initially took this Eternal Blue software, at this exploiting software, and they added some more features to it and then made it into a ransomware. So how it works is that I have a simple note over. I just have a simple note over here. Let me just open this up. There we go. And let me just zoom this up so that it's easy to see. So I just have some notes about some common frequently asked questions about this, and I'll actually show you to a presentation about it in a second. So this is actually a software from NSA, which with the data decryptor, worm, key generator, and a few other tools, all packed into it. Okay, so how does it work? We need to know how it spreads. It actually spreads via the internet and email. How it works is actually a very complicated process, and if you want to know in detail, only if you're an IT professional or some kind of a computer science student, an IT student, only then you'll be able to understand this. Or if you have some kind of working knowledge about how the nitty-gritty details of how internet works, or what happens behind the internet, or if you're a web developer or something like that, then you might understand all of this very easily. But if you're like a average user or someone who has very little computer knowledge, especially about the internet and the operating system background, then you may not understand this fully. So if you just look at the internet, you want to find some details, it might be very confusing, because I was also looking through this and it was pretty confusing. After some research, I kind of noted down these points. So let me put this in a way that is as easy as it can be. Okay, so what happens is that this malware is, when it's released in the internet, people do not have complete idea as to how it got released, whether it's just by random injection into some kind of websites, into websites, or some kind of an email attachment. People don't know, so people are expecting that both these could be possible. Either way it's injected, what will happen is that it will just go into certain websites. Okay, this malware checks if it can reach a specific website listed in this place. This is actually a very long website name. If it sees whether this website name has a lot of list of websites, okay, and it tries to see if it can reach if the websites listed in this website over here. Okay, if it is able to reach, then it looks for the something called as a port 445. Okay, and see if it is accessible, in the sense it's opened or not. If this is open, actually this actually acts as a weak point for this malware to enter inside web systems. I mean web server or the other websites. So when it is entered, it just stays there. And if some user whose system is very vulnerable for this attack to happens to visit this website, then this malware actually enters the PC through a vulnerability present inside Windows operating systems that even Microsoft did not know. Even Microsoft did not know. And then it enters through them, and afterwards it uses the worm feature that is inside, and it starts spreading through other computers connected to the same internet. Let's say it enters through your system, and in your home your parents, your mother or your girlfriend or multiple people are living, and if through that internet it actually went into your operating system, in your Windows computer, let's say, then through that common internet, like the Wi-Fi spot or the LAN wire, it can actually spread to other people who are the same network as well. So if you're sharing if you're like a roomie, or like you're sharing Wi-Fi or LAN or a hotspot with other people, and your system got infected through this, it's possible for other systems who are connected to the same Wi-Fi, LAN or hotspot to be infected just from your PC afterwards. That is really powerful in that regard. So once it gets infected, as long as the internet connection is on, it can spread through other PCs. So you have to be careful, and that's why it's very this is actually very dangerous. And what actually happens is that once this malware enters inside a computer, it just encrypts all the data, and then it changes the wallpaper, and you get this particular wallpaper over here. So you get this particular wallpaper over here. It says, "Oops, your system important files are encrypted." When it says important, it's actually not important. It's actually all the files. Okay, not your software, but almost all the other files. They all are encrypted, and it just mentions this message, and you'll get a window, which I'll show you in a second. Okay, and the antivirus will be removed. Antivirus will be removed, and all your files will be decrypted, and if you run, there is a small application. If you run this, it will just tell you some instruction as to how you can actually work your way out and get this data out. And what happened is that if you run this window, you will get this window over here. It will just say that, "Oops, your file has been encrypted," and it will explain you what happened to your system, how can you recover your how can you recover all your files, and what do you need to do. This is actually a good this is actually a ransom, because this malware comes into your system, encrypts all the data. In a sense, it kind of makes it very unaccessible, completely garbage like, and then they actually demand you, to pay money. How much? They demand you to pay bitcoins worth $300, and you have to pay them within 3 days from the day of attack. Okay, they actually demand you to pay within 3 days. If you don't pay within 3 days, then the payment will be raised, and they might ask you something like $600 or even more, depending upon what kind of user you are, or something like that. Okay, and if you do not pay the money even after 6 or 7 days, all your files, this malware will completely wipe out all the files in your operating system. I don't know whether I think it will leave your software as it is, but it will wipe all your other documents that you have in your operating system. That is totally terrible. Okay, and proceeding further, that's what I mentioned over here. It encrypts all the data, changes the desktop wallpaper, and what was that? This becomes your desktop this one will actually becomes your desktop wallpaper. And for those people who do not have an idea what encryption or decryption is, it's a kind of way to hide information using some clever tactics. I'll just give you a simple example of an encryption. This is my name, Arun. Okay, this is suppose your original data, let's say. Okay, I use an encryption method, in a sense, just to make it hard to read, or make it unreadable. So what I do is I use a method called as, okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to make it this some kind of jumbled up puzzle. For every alphabet I come across in the name, I replace it with the next alphabet. So so the first letter is A, so instead of A I replace it with B. Instead of R I replace with the next alphabet S. Instead of U I replace the data with the next alphabet, which is V, and instead of N I replace it with the next alphabet O. So my name Arun becomes BSVO. Okay, and now this data, now you're actually seeing this, this encryption method, so you know what the data, what the information is. So even if you know the information, you can actually figure out recover the original information by doing the decryption method, which is actually for this data, for every alphabet replace it with the previous alphabet. So this is my decryption key. With this date information, I'll be able to recover the data, okay, the original data, this way. This is actually an example of a simple data encryption, which is actually much more easy to follow. But when people actually implement encryption and decryption on the internet, they don't use some simple methods like this, because these are easily traceable, and you can easily traceable or solvable. So people actually use several kinds of complicated algorithms and encryption methods and decryption methods to make it as messy, as difficult as possible to recover the data. So unless otherwise you're an expert hacker, or you're the one who made this encryption, it's very hard to get a decryption back. So that's the point. Unless you know what the decryption key is, you have no way to retrieve the data. Okay, otherwise you have to be very strong otherwise you have to be very intelligent or have enough expertise to figure this out. And that, trust me, it's not that easy. It's not that easy. Okay, so who gets affected? As far as I know, only Windows users are affected. Okay, why specifically Windows? Because this entire software, this entire malware was actually made using was made using Eternal Blue, which actually takes into effect only. It actually works on a Microsoft-based operating system, which is actually Windows. So if you're using some kind of a Windows system, then you're prone for this attack. Okay, so next question would be, what to do if your system is infected? Well, the only thing you can do is you can't do anything after this. Okay, the best way to make sure that other people who are using the same internet connection do not get affected by this. What you do is just disconnect the internet. Well, I mean, switch off the Wi-Fi, switch off your Wi-Fi, and disconnect the internet, and then say bye bye to your system and fully format it. Some say that if you just clean up the software afterwards and delete all the data, it will be fine. But for safety, what you do is just fully format your PC and install a fresh copy of Windows. And as far as the data is concerned, I'm really sorry. If your system is infected, your data is lost. It's as good as lost. The only thing is, if you're able to pay $300 of bitcoins equivalent of money, then the hackers will give the money. Hackers will give you the decryption key of the steps to restore your data. The thing is, when you're actually dealing with these kind of people, the chances are that they may be truthful and keep their end of the bargain and actually give you the key, but they may not. Okay, there's always this uncertainty that they may not give you it. So you should not trust. You should not be naive to trust them. Thing is, the next question is, should I actually pay the ransom? If you ask me, absolutely not, because this is actually a huge sum. $300 maybe a meager. I mean, it's not a meager sum. It's actually a significant sum, even in United States. Okay, this could be a significant. This is also a considerably significant sum in several countries throughout the world, where the exchange rate with the dollar is actually considerably higher. Okay, so the chances are that the hackers may double cross you. So do not pay. If your system is infected, there's nothing you can do. Do not do anything. All you do is just disconnect the internet and fully format a PC. There's nothing you can do. I'm sorry. I'm very sorry to say that. I don't know. That's the whole point here. Also, if a system is infected, if it's infected, it has something called as a double pulsar infection, meaning it's actually a complicated term. That to put it simply, it just leaves a backdoor for these attackers to come and infect your system in the future. Okay, so even if they give you the decrypted data, whether if they consider you, let's say, they feel pity for you or they feel sympathetic for you, and they reduce the ransom or completely waive the ransom off for you, or in the sense that you paid the ransom money they requested, and then they gave you the decryption key, so that you can restore all your data. Even in these kind of cases, what happens is that the malware, when it actually infected your system, it actually leaves a backdoor or a vulnerability point that if the hackers decide to attack you in the future, okay, they don't need this ransomware anymore. They can use this vulnerability and then come and attack you for the future. It's like one hijack. It's like how do I put it? You got robbed by a thief. You got robbed by a thief, and the thief ask you in demand for money, and then you gave him the money, and also in that process he or she gets your address, and then says that he or she will come and attack you in the future. It's kind of like the same scenario over here. Okay, so this backdoor can be used by the hackers to attack you in the future via internet. So do not pay. So how did this leak actually happen? That might be the next question some of you might be having. This actually caused by a mishap by the National Security Agency. Apparently what happened is that this software got leaked into the internet by this shadow hackers group, the shadow brokers hacker group, on 14th April 2017, and this some North Korean hackers, apparently that's what I heard, some North Korean hackers got access to this leaked tool, and then they leaked to this Eternal Blue, and then they added the above mentioned worm, some other encryption, decryption features and all, and they released it into the internet. Okay, this is actually noticed first of all in United Kingdom, and then they noticed throughout the world. Okay, and if you're like somebody whose system was not affected by this leak, this malware, okay, and you're like doubting like whether you'll be affected by this in the future or not, especially in the next 1 week or something like that. Here's the thing: if you're using a Windows that is actually Windows 7 and older, chances are that you will be affected severely. Okay, if you're just like some kind of a home user or some small office user wherein there's not much of a internet traffic, not much connection to the overall massive outlet of the internet, okay, you may not, most likely you will not be affected by this, because there's very less chances for this to happen, but nevertheless there is always a very small chance. So I just saying that you're like, let's say you're like 10% chances, on a gut feel you're like a 10% chances. And if you're using a Windows 7 not specifically Windows 7, Windows 7 or even older versions of Windows, let's say, chances are that you get infected highly. You have very high chances of getting infected, especially if you're using much more older versions. Okay, and if you are somebody who is using the systems in his big office or some corporate systems or some big industries or hospitals or some big companies or stock market related companies or something like that, you have a very high chance of getting affected. Okay, and another question is, do you install the updates in your operating system very often? Like if you do install updates often, then it's very unlikely for you to get attacked, but on the other hand, if you do not install the updates very often, then you're very likely to get attacked. Okay, so if you're not affected by this, what you do is just install this security patch for Microsoft. There is actually this MS-17 security patch released by Microsoft in last Friday, and they have been releasing it for Windows XP and even older versions of Windows, all the way till Windows 10. Go to the internet, get that installed and reboot. install the security patch for Microsoft, and reboot. This is absolutely important. If you do that, your system is secure. Your system is secure, and you don't have to worry about this. Okay. And to share a few articles that I found on the internet, thanks to a video by QuizUp. Okay. This is about the Eternal Blue software, and here in this page, they actually, by SANS ISE InfoSec forums, they gave full information. They gave some good the technical details and the nitty-gritty details of how this happens, or how this ransomware attacks. And leave this part. And here in this web page over here, they actually tell how many attacks or scans for this data port 445 has been attacked in the future. Like how many kind of attacks were there. And this is another this website over here. Here they tell the different throughout the world as to where are the major places, where are the potential places where this malware actually attacked. And if you notice, majority of the attacks actually happens in the west coast of United States, some in the east coast of United States, and the majority of them happened in the Europe and Russia. And the most infected people are from Russia, China, Eastern Europe, and India. One article mentioned, which I'm just saying this from the top of my head, so correct me if I'm wrong. About 60%, around 60% of the computers in computers in China, maybe 60 to 70% of the computers in Russia, and maybe around 58% of the computers that in India, they got affected. And the reason why people say that these systems got affected is because many of these systems, they use an outdated or even pirated versions of Windows. Like Windows XP, Windows 7 and all. And as a consequence, these systems which are pirated, they do not get the updates. So if there is any vulnerability or security issue, they do not get any patches or security updates from Microsoft. Hence, they are extremely vulnerable for this kind of an attack. And that's the people say that this is the major reason why the attacks actually burst out in Russia, China, and even in India. I'll talk about some of the reasons. Why this happens in these countries in a moment. Before going on further, there are a few more articles wherein they talk about the fixes. Fixes. These are the MS-17 bug fixes. MS-17 fixes that are available. That are available here. They mention all the issues that are available in that are there in Microsoft, and how to get and some of the information that you can actually go about here. And here in this article, they mentioned about the release of the bug fixes and the patches for this issue. And they also give a little more of information about this Wannacry malware, and they mention some more information and how this actually happened. Okay, they just say the same story. They pass in the information. And here in this article by Register, just mentioned that 74 countries throughout the world are affected by this. And they mention about all the information throughout, all the nitty-gritty details of all this information throughout. And the top 20 countries that got affected is especially Russia, especially the Russian Federation. They are the one that's the main country that got affected significantly. And then there is Ukraine, India, Taiwan, Tajikistan, and several other countries in that order. And people also say that even China got affected considerably. One article says that even China got affected. Okay, this was actually from Kaspersky. Other article which I couldn't recall right now mentioned that China was also affected significantly. And this is actually a blog post from Microsoft, wherein they mention some of the details as to what can be done and the customer guidance information for those people who like to what can be done. And the main security update they mention is MS17/010 update. If you install this update, hopefully you will not get this problem. And they give a little more information here and there as to what it is and how to do this and all. And this article over here from New York Times is actually a backlash article. It's actually a backlash article saying about this problem. If I just to read a few lines over here, okay. This actually, I just reading this paragraph over here. As universities, hospitals, and businesses around the world continue to take stock from a global hack that has locked up at least 20,000 machines since last week, they are going through much the same process. Many are trying to determine if they lost any data or if the system is safe. That's pretty bad actually. 20,000 machines were affected in the last week, and Renault's company's operation in northern France has been affected significantly. Moreover, some of the places where this happened even affected badly is in the United Kingdom. Some places in the United Kingdom got affected very badly. For instance, here it says in Britain, where the attack was first declared on Friday, the National Health Service struggled to get hospitals, clinics, and doctors' office fully operational. In Britain, because the healthcare is, all the hospitals are computerized. All the patient information are actually computerized. So since the data has been compromised in this way, okay, if the doctors wanted to treat patients by looking at the medical records or allergy records or previous records or something like that, they have no way to actually get them, unless otherwise they had some kind of a backup and they were able to use the backup in a safer way. There's nothing they couldn't do. So many of the appointments and some kind of operation they had scheduled, all of them had to be postponed or delayed. Imagine how much of a annoyance, how much of a pain that could be. Like if you have, this is actually unfathomable. Let's say you're one of those people whose relative or a friend or some close person, somebody who's close to you got affected because by an accident or by some disease or by having a fever or something like that, and you go into the hospital and the people say that the doctors say that they cannot treat you because they don't have the medical record or information, or the facilities on this software actually screwed them up to the point that they can't do any kind of a procedure or something like that. How devastating could that be? This is actually what happened. And if in this article they mentioned several other information as to what happened in Germany, what happened in the United States, or what happened in several other countries throughout the world. And they also mentioned some of the issues that happened in Russia, China, and other countries. And this article, if you go through further, they mentioned the absolute need for cybersecurity. This is actually something we have to be very cautious and careful about. There are a few more articles over here, and this article is actually mentioning that the origin of this. There many people say that it's actually the Lazarus group or the government, apparently the North Korean government funded hackers group, which is actually responsible for this worldwide attack. And they're actually putting the blame on the North Korean hackers over here. But if you actually look at it, so everything will point out to NSA, this National Security Agency. They noticed this problem in Microsoft, and I guess the best thing they could have done is just tell Microsoft about this. And if they told, Microsoft would have improved this problem way long time ago, and that would have been better. And now they didn't tell, and didn't tell. And what's the next thing they do? At least they could have kept the software carefully. And no, that didn't happen. The software got released into the public just like that. I mean, just like that, at least to the point where somebody in the hackers group can actually go and access it. And now what happened? 74 countries throughout the world got affected because of this. God. And this is hard. This is not good. Fortunately for those people who use Linux or Mac OS X, they don't get affected because this was entirely built. This was actually entirely tailor-made for Windows systems. So if you're like using some Windows if you're like using Linux or something like Linux or Unix or some version of the derivative of Unix or something like that, which is non-Windows based operating systems, you're safe in that regard. And there's another article over here from Microsoft. This is actually another blog spot from my blog in Microsoft from Brad Smith. This is actually one currently 4 to 5 days old. Here also they mention the importance and the necessity that everybody should take, and especially the companies and the internet users should take the cybersecurity and all the information to make sure that this kind of a problem doesn't happen. Some say some time back in February, a digital Geneva Convention happened wherein the governments throughout the world actually met and they actually met to report the vulnerabilities to vendors. To notify them if there is any problems, and if they notice some kind of an issue happening in the in the internet and in cyber security, it's actually they are actually called to discuss these kind of issues. And even in these issues, apparently people are not taking enough. I think there are people taking enough consideration, but I guess many of them are not taking enough, and as a consequence, we are getting into problems like this. So this actually article gives a reflection. Is actually a reflection of this kind of a scenario. And it's saying that how much of a terror attack it can be in the future. Just by internet. And this actually, I guess, is a repeat of the same article. Okay, now I'll close all this up, and there is this presentation by SANS Technology Institute Internet Storm Center, wherein it's actually released in the Creative Commons license. What I'm going to do, I'm not going to walk you guys through. I'm just going to show you all the slides over here. If you want to read, you can actually pause the screen and read this through, and actually I'll actually put all these links so that you can actually download this. This actually has much more elaborate information about what happened over here, and a little more of an integrated detail to the point that people can understand to some extent. Okay, and all the information is given over here. I just made a little more of a shorter compiled version in my text. Okay, you can actually go through this and understand what can be done to mitigate this. They given actually a little more much more nitty-gritty details on how you can do this. I just mentioned a simple thing. This is actually a much more better way, and they even mention about this ransom note, this how to clean up the infected systems, what happens to the kill switch because of the malware, and what will happen if you pay the ransom and the impact of it, and there are some additional links through which you can get some information if you want more data. Okay, I'll actually put this presentation so that you can actually look at. Okay, this presentation is not by me. This is actually by SANS Technology Institute of Internet Storm Center. So this is released under Creative Commons license, so you can share this with people and modify this and use them as per your wish. I'm just going to put this as it is. Okay, so that you can actually get the better information. And just going back to some general tips. These are the things I'd like to talk about right now. Okay. I think I'll talk about this in another video. Okay, this video is significantly longer, so I'll talk about this in the next video. Alright, so that's all I have for you all in this video. Thank you for watching and listening, and I'll see you all next time.